In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to declare and create arrays in your VBA code. Now, since an array is a type of a variable, we use the same reserved word in the language we use to declare variables. That, as you remember from a previous lesson, is the keyword dim. Then we need the name of the array. Say I'm going to create an array of integers, or I may simply call it numbers, because that's what it holds, are numbers. And in a normal declaration, the next thing we would have is the keyword as, and then the data type of the variable, which in this case would be an integer. With arrays, we need to add something to our declaration, and that's the bound. We need to tell the computer how many items are on the array, and that's defined by the bound. The bound, as you recall, is the highest index value or the highest position in the array. We put that inside parentheses. So say we put in 20, all right? And now, as I say, we are creating an array of integers, so we just type the word integer. And that creates an array of integers, which is referred to by the array name numbers. And the bound of that array is 20. Now, here's the thing about putting the bound of 20 in there. You may think, great, I've got 20 positions or 20 items in that array. Actually, you have 21. Remember, by default, the first index in an array is 0. In other words, the first position is referred to by an index value of 0. So if the bound is 20, we actually have array items that would be referred to with index values of 0 to 20, which is actually 21 items. If you want a maximum capacity in your array of 20, and only 20, there are two ways that you could do it. Okay, we'd have to declare a new array, and we need to give it a different variable name. We can't use the same variable name of numbers because now that is referring to storage already created. We could specify a bound of 19, so therefore it goes from 0 to 19. Or we can specify a starting index value when we declare an array. All right, so let's create nums2. And that we can say we want to start at 1. So our first index is now 1. And go to 20. That now also creates an integer array with 20 items. But in this case, the index values would not be 0 to 19 as they would be here, but 1 to 20, because we're actually telling the computer the lowest bound and the highest bound, the lowest index and the bound, the highest index, in here, in the actual declaration process. Okay, so now that we've declared some arrays, how do we put values into there? Well, if we're putting values in one at a time, in a previous lesson I had stated we cannot work with the entire array. We can work with only one value at a time. So we'd have to say which item using its index number. So say I'm going to put into the first position into the numbers array the value of 12. Okay, we can't do this because numbers is the entire array. We have to tell the computer I'm putting it in the first position. So again, within parentheses, we will put the index value. Now the first position is 0. Now notice what the computer did here. It remembered the bound values when we declared it up here. Since we didn't put a starting index value in parentheses, it starts at 0 by default. So it's telling us the index values are 0 to 20. So the first position would be at index 0. And that puts the value 12 into the first position of the array. Now it is possible to fill an array with a bunch of values using what's called set notation. All right? You may read about that in an external source. I'm not going to show you that in this lesson because set notation has changed in the course of later versions of the Microsoft products. So if you need to put in values into an array, either you do each one on a separate line, or we'll use a construct later on in this course called a loop, which allows you to put values into arrays that way.